Welcome to this week's edition of Cream of Cabarrus. Did I say that right?
You did.
Cream of Cabarrus. When we started last week, we were calling it the top of the IT, but we've decided that the cream rises to the top and top of the heap. Yeah, I'll get it out of the way before you say it.
Absolutely.
And the Cream of Cabarrus this week. I'm Mark Plemmons, Jemal Horton, sports editor here at the Independent Tribune. Thanks for joining us. And we got a few changes in the Cream of Cabarrus this week.
We do. It was, last Friday's games were really a tough night for our area teams. I think in the boys' rankings, Cream of Cabarrus rankings, two of our top six teams suffered defeats, and then the girls, 5 of the 6. Actually, all 6 suffered defeats.
Oh yeah, you're right. There were a couple. Most of the public schools had didn't play as many games last week.
Right, but Central Cabarrus, they were the only ones last Friday who wound up successful. And, that night also, First Assembly won, but then suffered a defeat later on Monday against Davidson Day. We'll certainly get into all of that later, but it was a rough night last Friday, but here we are again. That's the great thing about high school basketball. It all begins anew, and in week number 2 of the Cream of Cabarrus basketball rankings.
And as we get into the ladies' rankings, let's start at number 6. Cox Mill, no change there. Cox Mill, they had, as we mentioned, a tough week losing to Carson. They are at number 6 in our ranking, and then as we move up, we've got First Assembly.
Yes, First Assembly, holding that number 5 spot. They have a number of young ladies that are playing really well for them and doing well in that Metro Atlantic Conference, excuse me. Good job for them, maintaining.
I think when you look at the standings from 5 probably all the way up to 2, I think any of these teams could on a given day beat each other. And as we go to number 4, we see Central Cabarrus. I had a chance to see them in person last week against Northwest Cabarrus, and wow, they've got some great size inside, and Hollett shooting from the outside and doing the guard play. So if you got an inside and an outside present, you can play with just about anybody.
Yeah, Coach Brandon Blaylock is really fortunate. Again, you alluded to Mahaley Hollett, Sophia McFarland, who's a rebounding machine. She pulled down 20
rebounds and 20 points against Northwest Cabarrus.
Yeah, a big night, and they also have Casey Rowden and a number of other players coming in playing some key roles for them. So
I saw a couple of the Northwest players too that doing pretty. Joy Smith particularly was impressive in that game, even in the loss for Northwest. As we move up to number 3, A.L. Brown playing in that tough Mecca 4A league. They're a number 3 team, and they had a tough, tight loss to Mallard Creek.
Yeah, and you mentioned it just last week, Mark, that they were really getting into a really tough portion of their regular season schedule. They're still going to be battling, still going to have some wins in front of them, but they lost last Friday to Mallard Creek.
And that is there is not a bad team in that league. I mean, there's no team that you can say, okay, I can pencil in a win here, because if you play the last place team in the Mecca 4A in the ladies' side of things, they're going to be pretty good.
Absolutely.
As we move to number 2, we've got Hickory Ridge, and Hickory Ridge coming off a tough loss and tightening things back up just a little bit in the South Piedmont Conference standings as they fall to Western Atlanta. That puts Hickory Ridge at number 2 this week.
Yeah, it does, and they maintain that number 2 spot. Largely because it was a rough week for everyone. Easy for me to say there, but it was a rough week for everyone last Friday. But they're holding strong at that number 2 spot. It was a little surprising to see them lose to West Rowan. I do think that they are a cut above the Falcons. But they're going to be, making some noise the rest of the way this season. And again, it's a long season and a lot of time to move up in these Cream of Cabarrus rankings.
They play Concord coming up this Friday in a special night. Thalonda Rose Simmons, their head coach, lost a brother to, I believe it was leukemia. And so they're doing a Be the Match program going on Friday night, again, over at Hickory Ridge. And we get to the number 1 team. I'll let you unveil number 1 this week on the ladies' side of things.
It's Lynn Smithman's squad. Excuse me. Here I go again.
What'd you have for lunch,
Tongue
man?
twister. That's what I had. My goodness. But yeah, Lynn Smithson, the coach of the J.M. Robinson Bulldogs, doing a great job, and they're at that number one spot for the second consecutive week.
And of course, they're still trying to battle it up atop of the Mecca Conference. Tough loss to Hopewell, as we mentioned, but J.M. Robinson 10-3 and number one in the cream of Cabarrus for this week. Now let's move on to the guys' side of things, and we have a little bit of change in the middle of the pack, but no change at the top. But let's go number 6, Central Cabarrus coming in. And boy, they had a tough time of it against Northwest Cabarrus. That was a real war.
Yeah, I know you got to see a pretty good game there. Levon Hightower for Central Cabarrus played well, but a number of great athletes.
Yeah, Shaylin Thompson also, and I think Shaylin hit 5 out of 6 free throws in the overtime to help with that. But those two guys must have combined in the fourth quarter and overtime probably 25, 30 points in that section to bring them back and keep them at number 6 and keep them in the hunt in the middle of the pack there, trying to get up that 3-4 spot in the South Piedmont Conference. Cox Mill, a team that we had very highly in our rankings, was slipping just a little bit to number 5, and they had a tough loss to Carson, and that was on the road at Carson. And Carson's they've had some real wars the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, they really have. Just a little bit of a slip there for the Chargers, going from number 3 last week to number 5 this week. But again, plenty of time to make a shift.
Carson getting a little bit of revenge. They lost at home in the South Piedmont Conference tournament last year to Cox Mill. So Cox Mill, the SBC tournament champs last year, and that was kind of a rematch there up at Carson. First Assembly, number 1 in the state as far as the state rankings for private schools in Division II.
Yeah, the site that ranks the private school teams, ncrivals.com, has the Eagles at number 1 in the state, just ahead of Northside Christian, and of course during the earlier this season. First Assembly beat Northside Christian on its court. But a great job by Coach Frank Cantador and the Eagles thus far. They've really been busy. They've played 3 games over the past, I think, 5 days and emerged victorious in all 3.
Now we've got Concord moving up 1 spot to the number 3 spot after a non-conference win last Friday against Rocky River. You had an opportunity to see the Spiders up close and personal.
Yeah, they are getting better each outing. I mean, they really are. I mean, I saw them earlier this season, Mark, against Cox Mill, a game that they lost. But now, I mean, my goodness, those guys are really, really playing well. Some of the football players coming and making contributions. Ray Kowalski making a great impact as their leading scorer.
What did he drop down 28 the night you saw?
He did against the Rocky River Ravens. So that's another team you're really going to have to watch out for.
Now, things got really tight after Hickory Ridge losing to West Rowan on the boys' side of things. Sets up the big matchup on Friday night, Concord and Hickory Ridge. And conceivably, if Concord were to come away with a victory, we could have a 3-way tie for first place in the South Piedmont after Friday night's game. Right. But again, Hickory Ridge 12-3, and they are our number 2 team in the cream of Cabarrus rankings.
Yeah, a little bit of a tumble from last week. They were the number 1 squad in that inaugural rankings by the Independent Tribune, but not a far fall at all. And they're certainly going to be ready on Friday night. I can't wait to be at that game. I'm sure that atmosphere is going to be electric against the Spiders.
And they really crank up the noise. The student section at Hickory Ridge, they'll stand on their feet the entire time and make a lot of noise. So it should be an interesting atmosphere at Hickory Ridge and Concord coming up on Friday night. And our number 1 team, and they weren't far from number 1 last week at number 2, but number 1 this week, J.M. Robinson.
Yeah, J.M. Robinson, again, we talked about some teams that had some tough losses last week. J.M. Robinson coming off that win over the then number 1 team in the state, North Mecklenburg, really had his hands full last Friday against Hopewell and walked away with a 1-point victory, I think it was, there in Huntersville. So, Coach LeVarbat's senior squad is playing well. Very talented squad. Right now, they're at number 1, and let's see if they can hold on to that top spot in the cream of Cabarrus.
It's going to be tough, but Robinson got a lot of talent on that basketball team, and they seem to be gelling pretty well as we hit the midpoint of the season.
Absolutely.
Jemal, what else we need to tell folks today before we squeeze out of here?
Just, we have a lot, more coming for you in the Independent Tribune, the physical paper, and online, and on our Facebook page. And, I'm a Twittering fool, or just a fool, but I do
It
like
works
to
both
tweet.
ways.
And so does Mark. And also watch out for Cabarrus Free Radio.
Radio Free Cabarrus. Yeah, I get called a lot of things on that. But yeah, we've got lots of broadcasts, and we embed most of those broadcasts on the newspaper's website, so you can read the game story while you watch along if you want to on the games that we do cover. So
and you guys will be out at Hickory.
We've got a crew at Hickory Ridge, and we'll have another crew at Cox Mill as well. So East Rowan and Cox Mill are two games of the week coming up on Friday night. So that's the cream of Cabarrus for this week. For C. Jemal Horton, I'm Mark Plemmons. James Nix over behind the camera doing a great job as always, and it looks good because of our man James over there. James the award-winning James Nix, and I kid James, but in all seriousness, folks, we've got the best photographer in North Carolina. We ought to call him our version of Hugh Morton. This has been the cream of Cabarrus rankings. Y'all have a great day, everybody. Thank you.